Well, now, and which systems, the specific biological systems, are most impaired from your experience? Is it DNA damage, mitochondrial issues? Is it
Oh,
telomere shortening? I mean, what?
I would say I don't know if there's anything in particular. Of course, as the consumer or as just people, what we notice are the physical things. Like your skin is one of the most visible places where you'll see antioxidants. Free radical attack. That's wrinkle formation, dry skin, any kind of changes in the color of your skin.
And specifically the fine wrinkling that you see
Right.
around in the corners of the eyes, it's commonly associated with smokers. You know, when you see someone who smoked for many years, and what I've noticed also, and I think this is another artifact of free radical excess, is in those who are engaging in really excessive cardio aerobic type activity like marathon runners or long distance racers, and they're not optimizing their diet with supplementations or proper foods, and then they get this. They look like smokers. I mean, these are young adults sometimes. I mean, 30s and 40s who've got really damaged skin. So do you find that a supplement program for someone who's doing these excessive, and I think types of exercise where there's this free radical production, or even smoking, that they've been shown, or your experience anecdotally is that they can reduce this type of functional appearance of aging, like is expressed in the skin?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And the interesting thing about exercise is, most of us are not elite athletes. We don't train every single day. The ones that train on a regular basis tend to have their body adjust, and they actually start producing more endogenous antioxidants. It's the weekend warriors, which is probably most of us, who don't train regularly, who will beat up their bodies, and then they produce these free radicals at higher levels because their body is not adjusting to an everyday training regimen. So those are the people. That's the majority of us who really should be taking antioxidants regularly. If they're not taking them as supplements, they need to be having a good diet. But how many of us really do have that perfect 9 to 12 servings of fruit and vegetables a day?
Yeah, aside from just generally classifying people, my experience is, unless you're really sort of a raw foodist, is really focused on this. And there are a number of our readers who are, and my hats go off to them. They really are leading phenomenally healthy lifestyle. Those would be one of the few people who need supplementation, but that's certainly not the most of us. And I'm wondering what from your experience and review and understanding and study, what conclusions you've reached with respect to identifying different antioxidant groups and kind of selecting groups to consider for supplementation.
Well, if you look at just what's considered a good diet, it's usually fruit and vegetables, but lots of different colors. So all of those different colored pigments that you see in fruits and vegetables are a result of, those pigments are the antioxidants. So you should be looking at, if you're going to supplement, you should be trying to get a variety of antioxidants, because one of the things I was wanting to talk about with the different radicals is they all work differently. They all work different on different tissues. They all attack different types of free radicals. So to be honest, I would say there's not one antioxidant that's necessarily better overall than the rest. You need to have a varied antioxidant intake. You want to have things that are fat-soluble antioxidants, things like the carotenoids, beta-carotene, vitamin E. You want to have antioxidants that are water-soluble for different reasons. They get into different parts of different tissue, and those are things like the anthocyanins that you see in purple and red fruits, or resveratrol, which you find in wine. But then there's this other little twist, is that you want to find antioxidants that are bioavailable. And what bioavailable means, just because you eat it doesn't mean it gets into your bloodstream. And resveratrol is an interesting one because I'm sorry, not resveratrol. CoQ10 is an interesting one because there are different formulations of CoQ10 that are more bioavailable than others. And it depends on you as a person. It's not, you can't generalize about what people taking CoQ10 and whether they're going to be bioavailable versus someone else. It depends on your genes, whether you should be taking ubiquinone or ubiquinol. So a little bit of everything is actually really best way, just like a little bit of everything in your diet.
Well, just last week I had a chance to meet with one of the technical advisors for the largest manufacturer of CoQ10 and ubiquinol in the world. He was a Harvard researcher and was hired as a technical consultant for the company, and pointed out some really interesting things with respect to bioabsorption. So clearly there is a difference, but
yes,
but especially with the CoQ10 products, there's a number of products that developed some interesting technologies that increases the absorption of CoQ10.
Right.
But the challenge, as I see it, is it's almost a moot issue. In fact, I just had a discussion with one of these presidents of one of these companies, and that it doesn't matter if you're absorbing 10 times or even 5,000 times more CoQ10. If you're beyond a certain age, typically about 35 or so, the ability of your body to reduce that antioxidant, which is really the functional capacity, because an oxidized CoQ10, which is CoQ10, I mean, that's the oxidized version, doesn't really work. Your body has to reduce that, otherwise it doesn't work at all. So if it's in your body and it's not reduced, then it's kind of irrelevant. So in my view, it's that really the ubiquinol is, as you're older, that's really the key to using it. And I've gotten to the point now, and at least the literature I reviewed, I'm really discouraging anyone over 35 or 40 even think about CoQ10, because really the value is in the ubiquinol. And the older you get, or the more compromised you are physiologically, the less ability you're going to have to convert that to the active form and do its function. Because, you certainly have expertise in here, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's the reduced version of these antioxidants that work. It's vitamin E or vitamin C. If you take a vitamin C that's brown and oxidized, it's not going to work. It's got to be regenerated. And that's one of the beautiful things about CoQ10 is that it facilitates in the regeneration of many of these other antioxidants.
And there's actually a gene that you can have your DNA tested for, the NQ01 gene, where those people can't, even when they're under 35, can't take the CoQ10. They have to take the reduced version because they can't metabolize it. So I think it's a fairly large percentage of people who have this mutation on this gene.
It's a lot pricier, maybe 200-300% more, but if you're going to use it and if you make the decision to do it, it's really, to me, it's sort of it's really obvious as to which solution you can go. And your comment on the resveratrol with bioavailability, at least my understanding is resveratrol obviously is extracted from grape skins or grape seeds, and we make wine out of that. And I was under the impression that if you consume resveratrol with ethyl alcohol or typically alcohol, that it increases the absorption. Is that not true? Or
actually, I don't know the answer to that. But I do know that resveratrol, and I backed up because I corrected myself. It wasn't necessarily resveratrol that wasn't bioavailable. Resveratrol is not necessarily stable, and perhaps the ethanol that keeps it stable in red wine form. To be honest, I can't speculate. I'm not an expert in resveratrol itself, but I do know that it as a stability issue, that it does have a stability issue.
Well, and the other thing too, and one of the concerns we have with antioxidants in general, and why we really want, the first and best way to get your supplements is really from whole, ideally whole, fresh, raw foods, ideally, because of the fact that many times these antioxidants are, even though they're wonderful, they work collectively and synergistically with the other microaccessory nutrients, which many times aren't even yet identified. So it's the synergistic combination of the whole food that really makes the big difference. And you can't get
the whole matrix.
The whole matrix. So, that's really why I want to do that. And when you're seeking to get antioxidants, especially things like resveratrol, rather than to look for a high dose specific resveratrol, I think it's far wiser, and what we do in our product is to really combine this with this matrix with supporting antioxidants and really material from the original extract that provides these as yet unidentified and obviously not in the label ingredients that really support the benefit that antioxidant should be providing. Right.
You want to get it perhaps instead of at 98% resveratrol, perhaps look for it in a form that's from grape. Mm-hmm. And then it's not purified to 98%. It's maybe 30% or 20% or even 10%, because then it's surrounded by all the compounds that keep it stable, that work synergistically, that work together to provide